Food waste is a significant problem worldwide. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, about 1/3 of the food produced globally for human consumption is lost or wasted every year. While there are many reasons for food waste, such as in production and transportation, the amount we waste at home is also a significant contributor. We all have experienced throwing away rotten vegetables, expired products, or leftovers that have gone bad. This not only harms the planet, but also our wallets. So what can we do to avoid food waste at home without investing too much time or going crazy? In this video, we're gonna talk about 14 tips that can be helpful. Which one will you apply first? And which ones are you already doing? Tip number 1. Plan your meals. Planning our meals ahead of time could help us save money and reduce food waste. Once we have decided what we are going to cook for the week, we just need to create the grocery list with all the necessary ingredients. This will prevent us from buying any extra ingredients that we don't actually need and they will potentially end up in the trash. Tip number 2. Store food properly. Properly storing food is essential to keep it fresh and prevent it from spoiling quickly. Here are some tips. Roots vegetables should be stored in cool, dark places. Herbs and greens can be stored in a jar with water in or outside the fridge. Celery, lettuce, cabbage, and other leafy vegetables can be wrapped in a damp kitchen towel and stored in the fridge. Fruits can be kept on the counter to easily see how quickly they are ripening and eat the ripe ones first. Tip number 3. Freeze your foods. Freezing our food is a great way to preserve it for a longer period. Stews, soups, broth, and casseroles are all ideal options for freezing. We can even freeze fresh herbs and fruits to use when we need them. Let's not forget to label and date everything that we freeze so we won't forget what we have. Tip number 4. Practice FIFO, first in, first out. The FIFO system can be used to ensure that all the food is used first. This is an excellent way to eliminate food waste and ensure that we consume our food items within their optimal shelf life. To implement this system, store new items in the back and keep the old ones towards the front so they can be used first. Tip number 5. Cook your scraps. Cooking our scraps is also an excellent way to reduce food waste. To start, make sure to wash all of your vegetables properly and save the scraps in a big bag in the freezer. Once we have a sufficient quantity, we can cook them in a large pot of water to make vegetable broth. We can also use leftover bones from meat and fish. Tip number 6. Don't overserve. Serving food in moderate portion sizes can help avoid food waste. Sometimes we tend to serve ourselves more than we want or need, leading to leftovers that we can't finish or food that goes stale. It's better to start with smaller portion sizes and then serve more if we are still hungry. Tip number 7. Donate or compost. If we have food that we can no longer consume or has gone bad, we can consider donating or composting it. Many food banks and charities accept non-perishable and canned foods that are still within their expiration dates. Composting can also be an environmentally friendly way of disposing of food waste. Instead of going to landfills, compost provides valuable nutrients to our garden, improving its health. If we don't compost at home, we might have friends who do. You know what good friends would also do? Hit the like button of this video and subscribe to the channel. Much appreciated. Tip number 8. Love your leftovers. Leftovers are better stored in airtight containers and kept at eye level in the fridge to avoid forget about them. If you think that small quantities of leftovers are not worth keeping them, think twice. They can be paired with other ingredients or different types of leftovers to make a full meal. Tip number 9. Do a seasonal sweep. At the end of each season, it's a good idea to take a closer look at our pantry and see if there are any ingredients that have been sitting there for too long and need to be consumed. It's also important to clean our fridge regularly and consume anything that has been there for too long. Tip number 10. Use the whole fruits or veggies. Some fruits and veggies can be eaten with the skin, which often provide extra nutrition. If we scrape our root vegetables properly, we won't need to peel them. For example, potatoes, sweet potatoes, or beets. Fruits like apples and pears can also be eaten with the skin. Stems of vegetables like broccoli or certain herbs like parsley don't need to be discarded. Tip number 11. Store your bread in the freezer. Bread is one of those ingredients that stops tasting good after 1 or 2 days, which often results in throwing away part of it. To avoid this, I prefer to keep my bread in the freezer. I slice it before freezing, and when I want to have a slice, I just pop it in the toaster. Tip number 12. Use spatulas. Spatulas are very useful for scraping every last bit of a container, such as a sauce from a jar or something we just cooked from a pot or a pan. Tip number 13. Ignore expiration dates. For many foods, expiration dates tend to be overly cautious, and we can use our senses to determine if a food has gone bad. We can examine it closely, smell it, and taste a small quantity. If it looks, smells, and tastes okay, then it's most probably safe to eat. Tip number 14. Find recipe alternatives. When following a recipe, it's common to end up with leftover ingredients, and sometimes it can be hard to think of what to do with them. One option is to throw them together in a casserole or in a soup. Alternatively, we could find other versions of the same recipes. For instance, this video here is about a quick no-cook recipe for energy and productivity, and since we are opening a jar of chickpeas to make it, I also offer recipe alternatives to use the leftovers and make more healthy recipes that taste different.